gloomy days ahead for Asia's economies. The International Monetary Fund is painting a grim picture of what's to come in the face of the coronavirus pandemic. The IMF is projecting 0% growth for the region in 2020 for the first time in 60 years. Just 3 years ago, it had estimated 4.9% growth. And it's an even bigger blow when you compare that forecast to an annual average growth rate of 4.7% during the global financial crisis and 1.3% during the Asian financial crisis. But there are some stark differences between the business environment then and now. This time, the service sector is badly battered and bruised as countries restrict movement and impose lockdown measures. Key trading partners like the US and the Eurozone are also suffering a severe slowdown. The worst, in fact, since the Great Depression. China's economic slowdown also comes into play. It was able to avoid a major dent to growth in 2009 thanks to a series of substantial packages. But this time, it's unlikely to roll out the same level of stimulus. There are significant downward revisions in growth forecasts across the board, not just in China. There's also expected slowdown all over the region, Japan, Australia, and even in Singapore, where the economy is expected to contract 3.5%. The city-state has so far set aside 12% of GDP and is dipping into past reserves to fund some of these support measures. But the IMF's Asia-Pacific director says difficult times could still be ahead.
Whether this large fiscal stimulus package will guarantee the recovery of Singapore, that will be very hard to say, as I mentioned, because Singapore is a very open economy, and it depends not only on what they are doing, but also how the whole global economy will change. And unless this virus is contained globally, it will be very difficult to say Singapore alone can recover. At the same time, also, we see some sign of domestic situation is a little bit deteriorated. So having containing domestically this virus spread again is also another challenge for many Asian countries, including Singapore.
There is a silver lining, though. The IMF sees a rebound in growth for the region next year, but warns Asian nations need to sharpen all the tools in their policy arsenals. Top of the list should be supporting and protecting the health sector, as well as providing more targeted support for households and firms. Monetary regulations are needed to ease the stress on industries and SMEs. External pressures must be contained through bilateral and multilateral swap lines, and domestic demand stimulus is needed for people and smaller firms.